Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. I also just want to let you guys know to turn on the notifications if you enjoy the channel so you can make sure you get sent every single video. Today we're going to talk about Splotchmaker. This is something that I did bring up in a previous video, and I may do this more where I kind of look at a specific person more in depth. And today we're going to talk about Splotchmaker. So my impression of her is just that it's very hard for me to take her seriously because she's very much hyperbolic with everything that she says. I also think that she comes to topics with an assumption that you already know how she thinks and agree with her, which I think is a terrible way to advocate for anything. But I'd rather her be that way because that way she won't really convince people of what she's saying. So on this video, we're going to go ahead and go through some of her TikToks. Let's get started. Okay. So the comment on here says, or maybe you're just too young to have consequences yet. So Splotchmaker is pretty young. Splotchmaker is still in college. Or just graduated, I guess.
So funny when people say this sort of stuff to fat people because the goalpost is always moving. Like, first it's you won't make it to 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60.
Okay, so I will say I have seen this before. I don't think this is a good thing to say to anybody just because nobody really is that much of a fortune teller. I think it's a really, I don't want to cuss, it's a really bad argument against FA logic to say you won't make it to 30 or 20 or 40 or whatever. I think she's exaggerating again. I don't think anybody says you're not going to make it to 20. Most of the time people say till 40. And I don't think that it's that convincing being on the opposite end of it because you could be way off. That fat person could have fat relatives that are older than that age. It just makes you sound dumb as an anti-FA person. So I just want you to know not to do that because it's not convincing at all. The other thing that I will say just to her is that it really depends on how long you've been fat, how fat you are, and if you want to get super technical, how much of the fat on your body is due to seed oil consumption. Now that is very, very specific. But if somebody was eating 500 pounds of butter every single day, they're going to have less problems than somebody who ate 500 pounds of chips every single day. And all the ratios and everything would be totally different. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, is this fat person a binger? Or was it just a hormonal issue? Or what was it, right? Like, I do agree with fat acceptance to a certain extent that you cannot just look at a fat person and know their entire health history. Like, you can't. I've talked about this a lot. Fat people are really in three major categories. So it is people that have BED, people that have hormonal issues like hypothyroidism and PCOS specifically, and people who are addicted to food. So somebody could be in any one of those things. Typically, your most severe cases will be BED people because when you have BED, it doesn't matter how you feel physically. You will continue to eat, even to the point of throwing up. Even if you feel sick, you will still continue to eat. So those ones tend to be really, really, really big. But not everybody, and it depends on how severe that ED is, right? So I think it's really important to remember that fat people are not a monolith and you can't necessarily judge somebody's health. Splotch Splotch, from what I've observed, she used to be thin when she was a minor. So she has not been fat for very long at all. I would guess she's been fat for probably 4 or 5 years. I think I saw one of her TikToks. She talked about how she was gaining in 2019. And so she's been fat for around 4 or 5 years. I really started experiencing health issues after being fat for 10 years because I was fat from 6 or 7 years old up till 16, 17, 18. Around 18, I started getting high blood pressure. Around 21, I started having really terrible migraines and panic attacks and these types of things. Around 25, I started getting chest pains and extreme like hypochondria and psychological symptoms of the obesity around that time. And by 28, I was getting towards near death. So it takes quite a while. I think I was really big and I was a very much a huge BED person. So it was very severe, eating a lot of stuff, eating a lot of seed oils, right? My chips were my top food that I ate, which is extremely toxic. Those oils are very, very toxic. And to do that over many, many years, I was really in dire straits, especially with my dieting history that did not help at all. So I've seen her future. So what I will say to you, Splotch, is you're probably about where I was when I was in high school. Did I feel better in high school than I did when I was 28? Absolutely. Did I feel like I was fine? Absolutely. I did have fatty liver as well, though. I don't know if she does. But I'm just saying, these things don't affect you instantly. They affect you over many years and over time. So this commenter is not right in what they're saying because they can't predict. I would predict you're going to feel like absolute trash by the age of 35. That's what I would predict. I'd say by 40, you will feel horrible. I'd say probably by 30, you may have so many relationship issues that you can't sustain even friendships, or you will struggle. You already can't stand your family. So it already shows me that you're already having problems dealing with people in your life. So that's only going to get worse, and then you will get isolated, and then that causes problem. I mean, I see where this is headed. And she thinks, oh, I'm going to be fine because I have my career and blah, blah, blah. Honey, I had a job. I was living on my own. I was just as miserable. It doesn't matter. She's in for a very rude awakening on many, many different levels. But what it will hit her first is probably the she's already depressed as well. So I've seen some TikToks where she's depressed. But what will hit her worse is the relationship aspect, probably. And then after that, then it will be severe, severe health issues. And then she'll be like, holy shit. And it's kind of one of those things where you're fine until you're not. You're fine until you aren't. And it will hit you. It absolutely will. But I predict it would be by around 35, you will feel that way. You won't pass away. You won't be anything like that. You will just feel like absolute trash. That's my prediction. So that's an educated version of that comment. Now let's continue.
70. And then when you die at like a normal age, people are like, see.
So a lot of people don't make it to 70 when they are as big as you are. Splotch, I'm going to keep it honest. Splotch is very, very, very big. I do have family members that are big as well, but they are nowhere near as big as she is. And they are older. My grandma is definitely big. And she's in her, early 70s. But she wasn't big her whole life. She really only got big towards the end of life, which is different. Which again, it's how long have you been fat? It's cumulative over time. So, whereas like my mom, she's been fat for much longer and she has many more health issues in her 50s. So, the longer you're fat, the worse it will be. I suffered even worse health problems than my mother before the age of 30. You know, she was still relatively okay before her 30s. I wasn't. So, this stuff, it can get worse, but it's that same amount of time. You got to be big for an amount of time, okay?
I gotcha. Like,
Mm. Oh, but it will, honey.
sorry I died at fucking like 77, Stewie.
On this track, you will not make it to 77. I can guarantee that. I can't predict when you would pass. I would probably predict sometime. If you didn't change at all, I would say probably in your 50s. That's my prediction. Maybe even, yeah, probably then. If we want to get morbid here, that's what I would say. On this trajectory, of course, if you were to shift, then you would probably be able to live to your 70s, you know, and stuff. But you probably will pass in your 50s if you keep going. But you'll feel that, like I said, by 35. You'll be like, ooh. That's how you'll feel. And knowing you, you'd probably lie about it.
Like, the fuck? And then if a thin person dies, it's
Thin people can be unhealthy as well.
like, oh, that stroke got him that runs in their family. Oh, that heart attack that runs in their family.
You have talked about Splotch. You say that a lot of the family members that you have are not fat or they're very terrified of being fat. And you contradict yourself. I've seen this in a lot of her TikToks where she talks about how her family is extremely fat phobic and all this stuff. So if that's the case, then I would guess that they are not that fat or they're not really fat, which would definitely bust your genetics argument.
It got Bobby. But if they're fat and the same thing happens, they have the same thing running in their family regardless of weight, it's, oh, the fat did them in. Oh, shouldn't have done that to themselves. We can't win.
It's not the fat, it's the diseases around it. The fat is a symptom of other diseases, most likely hypothyroidism, which you can see she's got moon face to the max. It's very severe in you, girl. You very clearly do have some kind of hormonal issues because that is moon, a full moon face. So that's what I would say. I know that's harsh, but I'm not trying to be nasty. I'm just pointing it out. Your face is a moon face. It's very clear to me that you have hormonal issues that you should take care of.
You can do whatever you want with your body, including intentional weight loss, but don't act like your actions exist in a vacuum. Because all your actions have consequences, and when you post that sort of content, you're directly contributing to a toxic body hierarchy.
Okay, so this is just such a reach, as we've stated. A toxic body hierarchy. Which one do you think would be more toxic, you guys? The fatness spectrum or being thinner is better than being morbidly obese? I would say probably the fatness spectrum hierarchy is worse. But she, like many other FAs, they push another hierarchy. They're not about getting rid of hierarchy. They're not about getting rid of judgment. They're not about getting rid of anything. They're about replacing it with what they want. So they don't want what they view as the toxic body hierarchy. They want their hierarchy in its place. So what I will say is all my progress pictures and my before and after and all those things do is disprove your narrative. And that's why you hate it. Because you experience cognitive dissonance every time you see those pictures that you realize that what you're saying is a huge lie. That people can lose weight, they can keep it off, but all the lies you tell yourself to avoid any kind of responsibility, they are shattered every single time you see it. So, of course, to you, it's toxic, it's this, it's that. Of course. No, what it is it's disproving you. And I will continue to disprove you. Over and over and over again. I got it in the community page. Look at every single 5 pounds lost. Look at the distance in between. Look how it's still happening. Look how it's way beyond 10% of my body fat. Way beyond the set point I had in winter. It's way beyond, way beyond. I've lost 75 pounds of fat since July of 2022. Disproving you brings me great joy. Let's continue.
Every year, fat phobia becomes less and less acceptable. So in about 10 or 15 years, I don't want to see y'all pretending like you didn't enjoy and engage in fat phobic content.
This person obviously does not understand her generation. Gen Z is probably the most fat phobic generation I've ever seen that has ever existed since at least like the boomers or something. Like Gen X and millennials were not that bad. Millennials were when we were young, kind of, and like the industry was, but it really wasn't that bad. Gen Z is bringing it back with a vengeance. So I think that you're a joke for saying that, honestly. The writing is so clearly on the wall. I think it's actually getting worse because of people like you. People are being more hated for being overweight now than they were before. I think what a lot of these people don't understand is things in the media, sure. In Hollywood, sure. In those types of places, yes, it absolutely was bad in the 2000s and the 90s and whatever. But in public and stuff, not really. When I was a kid, I was fat forever. I hardly ever got criticism from somebody in public. It wasn't until after 2015 when fat acceptance really started taking off that I started having experiences in public. I think that it's highly correlated. You guys create what you're trying to get rid of. So I think that it's not helpful. None of this is helpful at all. Let's continue.
People can't just self-love their way into body liberation like thin people can. I can love my body as much as I want. That doesn't stop the fact that people label it a disease. They're doing everything they can to eradicate us.
Okay, so this is an issue that Splotch doesn't understand. She's very much of the mindset of it's easier to control other people's thoughts and words than to control what she puts in her mouth. I know that that's harsh, but that's the honest truth. Splotch, let me be real with you. It's much easier to control what comes out of your mouth and what you put in your mouth than it is to control what other people think or what they say. You are facing an impossible task, and it's just a task that you can use as an excuse for why your life sucks. When it's your fault, your life sucks. And the only reason why I say your life sucks is just because you talk about how you're depressed, you talk about how upset you are about everything all the time. That definitely paints a picture. So let's keep it 100. It's not going to get better until you take responsibility for this type of stuff, especially this. This is what you're doing. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Y'all keep proving that you don't have fat people in your lives, that you don't know any real fat people. We don't eat impossibly large amounts of food. And I'm vegan. So funny when...
So I wanted to show that because a lot of fat acceptance activists are vegan. Now, I talk a lot on this channel about how extreme dieting can cause hypothyroidism, and veganism is definitely a diet that will cause hypothyroidism, and we can see it as evidenced by her moon face. It might be the veganism that's making you fat. When did you go vegan? Because the truth is, unless if you are severely restricting calories on a vegan diet, you will gain weight. It is one of the most easy weight gain diets you can do, especially as an already fat person. I would never suggest it. I know that might get me hate, but the proof is in the proof of pudding, sweetie. There are many, many fat activists that are vegan. I know at least 3. Pretty sure. I should do a video on that alone because I see a lot of them are vegan. It's not a great diet for weight loss because you tend to either A, starve, or B, eat a lot of seed oils because instead of animal products, you're having seed oil cheese, seed oil milks, seed oil meat products, and estrogenic foods like soy products, which do not help a thyroid. Estrogen opposes thyroid hormone. It is a weight gain diet for a lot of different reasons. And just so that people don't get on my case and hate my guts, keto is just as much of a hypothyroid diet. I would never suggest keto either. Maybe there's certain cases where people have certain medical issues where keto can help them, but as far as a general person, I would never suggest it. So I had to show that just because it's a trend that I've noticed. I've noticed a lot of these fat activists are vegan or veganish or plant-based like Lizzo. But anyways, you guys, I am going to go. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know your comments down below. I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.